across a video on social media where there was a woman around 45 who seemed to be going through a major crisis, and in her video she was asking the question about how to identify whether she was or not. The woman in the video described herself as being someone who had it all, but she wasn't happy. She thought she wasn't happy because she was in her mid-40s, and she defined herself as going through a midlife crisis. So this is why I am doing this video, because I'm thinking at 45 I was already discussing the idea of being 50. I started to write about approaching my 50s, and I'm wondering if at that time I was going through some kind of midlife crisis, fretting about getting to this middle age stage. And now that I'm here, I'm like, why were you spending that time, that energy, fretting about a future time as opposed to focusing your energy on the current? But the video prompted me to, go through other social media sites and look up what people are thinking about midlife and how they define it, and what it means for them. And I keep seeing this term, midlife crisis, which 5 years ago, yeah, I would have accepted that term, because it seemed like inevitable, because I wasn't there. But now that I'm here, no, I don't accept that term. I define it now as a midlife renewal, and that's how I see it for myself, right? But I will say that some of the key things that I am hearing from people, and I'm learning from people who have gone through this stage, is that when you do reach middle age, there are certain concerns that you have that you may not have had when you were younger. You're able to look back at your younger years and also to see your own mortality, right? Which feels a bit strange, But also, I think because you reach this stage, you do feel a heightened sense of responsibility, especially because you're part of this sandwich generation. And that term shouldn't be new to you if you've been following my site, because I did a video called "What Kind of Sandwich Are You?", where I defined what it means to be middle-aged and to be part of the sandwich generation. So I feel that at this stage it becomes a more increased feeling of having these two generations dependent upon you, and it might feel like a crisis for some people depending upon how they view their life. Another thing too, in terms of midlife crisis or midlife renewal, is that you really are in a comfortable routine, because most of us have gone through certain life stages, our youth, young adult life, and a routine has set in, and we may experience a longing to do something else beyond the routine. Not all of us, but some of us may. And some of us may have that longing to do something else, but don't act upon it because we are too comfortable in our routines, I think, and are too afraid to do other things because we think it might be disruptive to our comfort zone. And sometimes that's where we don't grow. Another thing too that people who are at this age have said is that you might have a feeling that you've done nothing in your life, which is really not a realistic way of seeing things, because you've had to have done something to get you here. But maybe you may feel that you have not done enough, but you personally may say, well, I've done nothing, because there's a certain amount of dissatisfaction that you may have. In addition to that, others who are at this stage or have passed this middle-age stage start to feel and think a certain way in terms of just being middle-aged, when they start to say, well, because I'm this age, I'm supposed to be this way, or I'm feeling this way, which is quite common for someone my age. I'm not a young person anymore, so therefore, that kind of thinking. Or I can't do this because, you're not supposed to do this when you reach this age, which is limiting to a large degree. Another area that seems to be very common is that when you reach middle age, you seem to be defined by your health or lack of it. I guess if you have been reasonably healthy before this, it may not matter. But if you haven't, and then you might start seeing your health slowly start to decline, starting from this stage onwards, that you might start defining yourself based upon your health. So if these are examples of what middle-aged people experience, I guess really it's for the individual to determine if this is a crisis or a renewal. From my own individual perspective, I don't accept the term middle-age crisis. I did before I got to this stage, and now I'm here. No, I see this for me, or I'm really finding this for me as a middle-age renewal. And that's how I choose to see this stage, because crisis kind of lends itself to the idea that there's been some kind of disaster, that our lives, we live our lives, and when we get to middle age, we get to this disastrous stage. Why should that be? So to the person who had posed that question on her social media site and asked or questioned whether or not she was going through a midlife crisis and how would she be able to identify that, I understand why that individual, that woman, would be asking a question, because I think the middle age stage is one where you're able to look back at the past, come to terms with your present, and look into the future where you see your own mortality. But what do you think? If you are in your middle age, how do you see your life at this stage? What do you think about this term where people are saying that, in midlife you have, your crisis? So in hindsight, I define my life at this stage as being a midlife renewal, because I do definitely feel that I'm going through a different phase of my life, which feels very different from being a teenager. It feels very different from being a young adult. I'm able to look back at all those years, think about all those experiences, and also look ahead to my own mortality and have to face it, whether I really want to or not. What do you think? Oh, is this a midlife crisis, or is it a midlife renewal? Now, funnily enough, if you go onto social media sites, you don't really see a lot of responses or reaction from people who are middle-aged or older in regards to this stage in life. And I think that that needs to change. I think that we have a voice and that we should feel comfortable discussing this stage, because I think it is an important stage. You know, it can't just be that we've gone through all these wonderful years, we get to middle age, and then everything stops being an experience, you know, and we just kind of slowly plod into old age, and then we lay down and die. There's much more to life to that. Really? I mean, come on. So with that said, I thank you for sharing your time with me. I hope that my hindsight has and will inspire you, and that you will find, even at this middle-aged stage in life and beyond, that you will find your own way to blossom.